All right, now it's time to talk about debt financing. So to talk about that, it is my pleasure to bring to the stage from Seed to Sale Funding, Judy Rinkus, CEO of Seed to Sale Funding. Another warm Benzinga applause. Let's go.
Hello, everyone. I seldom do public speaking, so everyone please bear with me. I appreciate it. My name is Judy Rinkus. My firm is Seed to Sale Funding. My background before starting this firm is I spent over 30 years, the best years of my life, I guess, in commercial lending at a variety of large and regional banks, such as Bank of America, PNC Bank, and that kind of thing. And I handled pretty much everything other than cannabis, of course, but commercial real estate loans, lines of credit, all of these kinds of facilities that regular businesses are able to get through banks. So I left that industry about a year and a half ago. I started doing some loan brokering in general, and then after recreational went through, I started getting requests from old clients and referral sources to, do you know anyone who can do loans into the cannabis space? Well, I didn't at the time, but I made it my mission in life to find some. So it took me about 3 months, and I found about 20 private lenders who will actually lend into this space. So although there's many esteemed people who were speaking here today, there were several who said, more or less point blank, that you can't get loans in the cannabis industry. That is not true. You can get them. They are hard to find. There aren't many around, but I certainly have enough sources and have some proven ability to do that. So I want to get into a little bit more about how these loans would be structured. And let me say, first of all, I act as a loan broker. I'm not the one who has that money, so if you come up and ask me for $50 million if I marry you, there's a lot more steps to go through. So we can do debt capital for basically any of the facets of the seed to sale world: grow, cultivation, processing, retail, secure transportation. And we work with, again, private sources. I have about 20 that I work with who are primarily family offices, funds that invest in loans. And we're going to get into this in a minute. This is way at the bottom of the slide. Maybe it should be further up. But none of my lenders require any equity in your company. So I want to say that again. No equity at all do you need to give up. These loans are all coupon-based. You pay interest, you pay points. They don't ever want to own your company. They take collateral, and they'll take some personal guarantees. But you don't have to give up any part of your company in any kind of form: warrants, direct stock, anything. What are the loans typically used for? They are used for, and let me first back up for a second. I offer a number of different kinds of loans. I'm going to focus in this presentation, though, on real estate, because that's what we're seeing mostly in Michigan, at least. That's kind of the cycle that we're in right now, where people are purchasing real estate and building out different facilities. So these can be used for a variety of different kinds of cultivation and grow facilities. We just did a provisioning center, vertically integrated. There is money available for startups under some circumstances. So it's not like you have to be established for 3 years. Certainly, a lot of the people in Michigan haven't been established for 3 years, so it's not possible. And we've clearly closed on some loans that didn't have that kind of longevity. This is a brief summary of the pricing. So the loans that we have are basically, for the most part, between 8 and 14%. The lenders also ask for points at closing. It varies between 1 and 4%, depending on the lender and the term of the loan. In addition, you would also be responsible for my fees. My fees are success-based. You don't pay me anything until the loan closes, and it comes right out of the loan proceeds. And you'd also have to pay for normal and reasonable real estate loan charges, such as appraisals, title work, if there's environmental work that needs to be done. The loan-to-value ratio is typically up to 70 to 75% of the value of the property. I do have a couple of licensed appraisers in the state who have done these kinds of facilities in the past and can establish values, and I know that was part of the discussion in 2 presentations ago about establishing value. I do have appraisers that can establish values, and so the lenders will typically go up to about 70 to 75% of the appraised value based on an appraisal done by a licensed appraiser. They typically do require personal recourse. I know that's sort of a bummer for everybody. I don't have any sources right now for non-recourse loans, but certainly if you know of anyone, I would love to add them to my portfolio of lenders. Depending on the lender, we can close in as few as 30 days. I'm going to get into, if I have time here, get into a transaction in a minute that we actually closed within 28 days of receiving a full application. So these lenders can move very fast if it's a transaction that they like and if they have full information and a full package in order to process the loan. We can do construction loans, we can do bridge loans, which are typically interest only for up to about 3 years, and we can do permanent loans, which typically have a term of maybe about 5 years with a longer amortization, 20 to 25 years. So kind of covered this already. This is basically how the structures are once they're closed. The bridge loans tend to be a little higher priced, but the bridge lenders really don't want to be in these loans for a long period of time. They'd rather have you come in and out, either repay it through your own corporate cash that you generate from the project or refinance within the period of the loan. So those tend to be on the shorter side. Here are, I call them case studies, but this is really my brag sheet. And actually, this is a little outdated. We actually have closed one other transaction. And keep in mind, we've only been in business since April. So, so far we have done these 2 transactions. Both of these were construction loans, essentially purchasing the building and doing construction. The first one, we closed that in about, I think it was 32 days. The second one we closed in 28 days. So this is definitely something that could be done. We have a very active pipeline right now. And I would love to talk to any of you or any of your clients that would like to talk about this, because I'm here to dispel the myth that there is not financing, because there is. So at this point, I'll take any questions. I talked pretty fast. Nothing? Yes, the light's in my eye. Once we get we sign an agreement with you, we send out a list, but basically we need things like a business plan. We need your personal or the owner's personal financial information. We'll require a laundry list of other things. If you're doing, if you're buying a piece of property, we need, the purchase agreement. We need bios on the management. Anybody who's gone through the licensing process, which and everyone does have to be licensed, or at least to the stage where they have a letter of interest or whatever it's called from the municipality. But if you go on that stage, this will seem like a piece of cake. You'll already have most of this. You'll have to have done a business plan. Your personal credit has to be at an acceptable stage. You've gone through a background check. A lot of these things, it's more of a matter of pulling the information together and then making sure that you have the equity for the project. Because my financing sources will do 70 to 75%, which means, of course, you have to have your own cash to bridge the rest of it, as well as any other kind of working capital. As the facility is getting up and running and you're paying people, that's something my lenders will not cover. Yes? I am aware of one. I'm not sure we're talking about the same one. That's not my program, if it's the one I'm thinking of. No, my minimum, you'll see from these transactions, on the small side, we can go down to about $500,000. And then we can potentially do $50 million. We haven't tested that yet, but we currently have a couple of deals, and one's 19 million, and others around 14 million in the portfolio that are approved, waiting to close.
Hi, I was wondering whether you've heard of PACE financing, property assessed clean energy financing, and if you've used it, it acts as gap financing up to 30% of after repaired value of the building.
I have heard of it. I'm not aware that it's been used in cannabis, but I'm sure that, I'd love to talk to you about it. There's just certain things that we haven't encountered yet because we're kind of a new business like a lot of other people in the room. But I know there are a lot of programs. To the extent that they're government funded, for the cannabis industry, that is, I think, still a challenge because there can be limitations on what can be done, just like a bank loan. Great. Thank you very much.